Are you hopeful for the future with all this stuff?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's going to take a collaboration that we're not seeing yet amongst the people that are making the big decisions.
We haven't evolved there yet.
Yeah, but I think that collaboration will inevitably
it's all about the adoption rate.
Yeah.
It's a tipping point, right? Malcolm Gladwell calls it the tipping point in a lot of fusion of innovation. But what happens is, it took more than 40 years before more than 25% of the U.S. population adopted electricity. And that was the first utility, right? I mean, plumbing, electricity, gas at your home, as well as connectivity. Those are the 4 utilities. You add them all together, the 5th utility is the data center or the technology engine for AI. We are going to start seeing people buying it all as one utility as a data center, right? Because it all comes back to compute demand and how much capacity you have to process all that IT, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's really not limited. I mean, it is limited on CPUs and GPUs and shit, but it's really limited on electrons and the ability to cool or reject the heat that comes as a byproduct of pulling so much energy around. Right?
And that's the biggest problem that we have right now.
Cooling?
No, the electrons.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you'll see.
I think there's some cooling technology that comes out of utilizing gas turbines that can be pushed into the data center that'll bring your PUE down to next to nothing. And it's something I'm still learning, and it's some of the engineers.
Is it all water cooled 100%?
The turbines, yeah.
Oh, okay. So
not water cooled for the data center. I think I think as an industry, we've pretty much walked away from using.
The hyperscalers are 60 to 70% probably mechanical permutation is water cooled, but they're running at 480 to 600 watts per square foot. They're probably pulling 40 to 50 kW per rack on their way to 80.
That's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, but their footprint and signature will continue to get smaller. The power requirements won't change; it'll only get higher, right? So right now, I'm laser focused on doing things that are in concert with my clients, and the 2 biggest threats are people and power. And right now, I have a staff augmentation and staff recruiting business that can staff everything. I'm not just doing construction. I'm doing a lot of safety, quality, scheduling shit, right? But I got to go build these power plants too for people like you. They're going to be building master plan communities because a lot of those clients that you want to go there are people that we already get to build for anyway. And they're also, it's in our best interest as consultants to understand what's their best option and how fast can we get it to market? Because what you're talking about is the value is taking the land and then getting it through the entitlement. So all the first stage shit is done. So people have to come in and all they really need is a permit to go build.
Absolutely.
And that's fast.
That's part of the community engagement, right? That's part of making sure that there is that larger economic development so that whatever community you're going into is going to allow you to permit and do that kind of work because they see that there's going to be jobs and
there are lots of jobs, tax revenue generated.
Tax revenue, but more than just the tax revenue, because we've seen in lots of different communities like Chandler, like in Virginia, they don't care about the tax revenue anymore. They're using too much water, they're using too much power, and there's not enough jobs.
And they don't like the noise of the engines.
And they don't like the noise of the engine. So there's all these different elements that you have to make sure that whoever you're working with in that community is going to support what you're trying to build. Because this thing is massive. I'm talking about thousands of acres.
I think that the community has to buy in on what it's building. It's like you're really building an on-ramp from Utah to the internet, and they just need to understand that, right?
It's more than that. It's going to grow their airport. It's going to grow the amount of jobs that are available. It's going to bring people into the community. It's going to...
a lot of people have to move.
A lot of people have to move. And when they do that, the tax revenue is going to help build those schools. It's going to improve their roads.
Do the municipalities give you abatements or some sort of incentives to do things?
So we have a bunch of different ways that we're working for tax abatements. We're working to become an inland port, right? So that helps tremendously. So there's all kinds of different ways. And the state of Utah, the governor has said that they want to drive, more rural development. And so this is very much in line with what they want to do. So Utah has actually been very hospitable to us in picking this site to do that from a tax abatement rebate.
I got you. So the timeline on this big monumental thing is the first 650. Is that the first phase? 650.
First phase is 650 acres, but the first phase of the power plant will be 300 megawatts.
I got you.
And we'll do it in 300 megawatt phases. And there'll be about 12 to 18 months between phases, depending on who the ultimate end client and user wants to, how fastly they want to take that.
What does it take to trigger that? What does it take to trigger? Because how long does it take to put that plant online? You said 30 months?
30 months.
Okay, so what does it take to trigger that 30? Like, did you trigger it already? Do you need an anchor?
We're starting that already.
Okay.
Yeah, there will be shovels in the ground before there's an anchor, and we're obviously working on making sure that we have the gas available
Sure.
Before there's an anchor. But before major development gets done or major site development gets done, they'll
3 years from now, the pent up demand for that product will probably have it sold out before it's done being built anyway. Because right now,
the demand is insane.
Yeah.
Everyone I'm talking to, and we figured out really early on that we didn't need to go build the data center. I don't need to do the vertical.
It's just the infrastructure so they can come do their own product.
Well, either an end user can do their own product, or any number of the data centers that we've mentioned already
have a fixed form factor they want there or something.
Then they can come in and we can do a joint venture and lease them the land, and ultimately they can own it when we get interconnected to the grid.
Is it a deregulated? Okay, but it is a deregulated energy market. So you are.
It's a regulated market.
So how do you pass through or sell power in a regulated market when you're not in closed transition with the grid?
That's the secret sauce.
Okay. All right. Well, look, there must have been something that they did to get you to go down there to do that. So I get it. So that's your guys' IP. All right. Well, look, that's fantastic.
But can be done in almost, like I said, I have about 7 projects in pipeline, can be done in each of those states.
Are there other markets that you're looking at where they're underserved that you think would be able to? I mean, Utah isn't an underserved market really anymore. It was a second tier market, third tier best probably. Now it's a second tier market.
Right. But it's sold out.
Yeah.
And not only is it sold out, there's not going to be power for years. So I think that because it's southern Utah, it can serve Vegas, Phoenix, Salt Lake, right? And from a West Coast perspective, there's really not much, right? Hillsboro's sold out. Nobody wants to build in California anymore. Why would you?
But like when Amazon announces that they're going to do 15 billion, you got to remember, I mean, they've spent billions. Most of their shit's between Virginia and Oregon only, right? So they're going to have to go into other markets, other countries, I'm sure, onto those things. But like, there's still more going to that.
It's going to have to move to rural markets. When you're talking about this scale, you can't put that in an urban environment. You can't put that in a metropolitan area.
No one wants to see it.
No one wants to see it. No one wants to hear it.
Yeah.
And, power plants have some regulation about what can be around them from a distance perspective.
Sure.
Especially when we start merging into nuclear. So I think our thinking is, like I said, corridors along the major U.S. interstates, and eventually interconnecting all of these big plants that are along those corridors. And that's going to give you the runway to get to this 100 gigawatts that they're talking about by 2040.
I just saw that. That's pretty incredible. Well, look, that's fantastic about E3. Talk to me about what you're doing with Infrastructure Masons.
So iMasons Women. Yeah. I am, Heather Dooley is our fearless leader.
I've never met her, but she was at Google, right?
Yes. Okay. She's fantastic. Love Heather. Great mentor.
I've asked her to come speak at DCAC for years. She probably wouldn't remember that.
I have been a member of the committee, the larger committee, for a long time. We've changed the structure so that she's now at the helm, but there are regional leaders. And so Mara Irvin has the East Coast of the U.S. And I have the West Coast of the U.S.
Where's the line cut in? Texas?
Technically, I get Texas. She gets Chicago.
You won.
Did I?
Yeah, you don't want Chicago.
I mean,
you wanted Chicago?
No, I'm absolutely fine.
Like, man, you're in the Wild West right now in Texas.
We looked at it the way I used to from a sales perspective, right? You split the Mississippi.
Yeah, I got you.
She's been incredible to work with. I didn't know her. I knew of her, but didn't know her previous to this. So this has been wonderful to collaborate. She's brilliant and super fun. So we have our first iMasons Women West Coast event in San Francisco on April 18th.
What is it?
And it's for any woman in the industry. You do not have to be an iMasons member in order to attend. I think that that's a bit limiting if we do that. So definitely anybody can
That's
attend.
how they become members, is they got to get introduced to it first, right?
Sure. And the most important thing for me is, I think we talked about it a little earlier, there are so many women people in the industry that don't go to conferences. Like there's a certain subsection of us that go to conferences because we're salespeople, because we're in management, because
there's a lot of networking there, yeah.
Right. And so there's lots of people that don't necessarily get to go and don't have the ability to network on a global level, on a regional level, with different people that do what they do and share mindsets and responsibilities, and that they can network with. So this is,
an affordable luxury for them that don't get to go to the main national ones. They could go to a regional one.
They don't have to go and ask, for funding in order to be able to travel. Anybody from the Bay Area. So what's also fun is where we're hosting it is the old Wingtip. It was a boys club. It really was. It was a men's club, and they're rebranding.
Really?
And it is the original Bank of Italy building in San Francisco, which of course Bank of Italy became Bank of America.
Okay.
It is this stunning facility that they're completely redoing. They're rebranding and calling it the Amador.
Okay. What is it going to be?
It's still going to be a private club, but open to everyone. And they're really pushing for more diversity within their membership. And so part of doing that, they've partnered with us. And I'm bringing all of these wonderful ladies to the Amador. And
How many people do you think will go to that?
I'm not sure yet. We're still looking for people to RSVP. We've got quite a few already, but
Sure.
I'd love everybody to come.
Make sure you send us the information on that when this
Be
is
happy
done.
to.
It was last year. You were still at Oracle. We didn't even get through all your background. So let's bounce back into that,
Yeah.
and then we'll go back to Aaron Mason. So.
Yeah.
I think we just started diving in, both of us, because we have ADHD maybe.
Yes.
And we were just like squirrel, and we saw a shiny object, and we were talking about digital, and then we went right to E3 kind of. I think I was trying to talk about the trials and tribulations of being a woman in this industry. I genuinely am interested in that because I'm like, I got a daughter. She's beautiful. I hope that she finds a home in this industry one day. I think that she might.
Mm-hmm.
She seems genuinely interested in these types of things, and she's a lot like me, right? Where I think that it wouldn't be a surprise if she was either in this industry or in orbit in the ecosystem and around it, and somehow.
I think the whole world is going to be in orbit of this industry soon.
I believe that by the end of this year, the word data center, that word will be on everyone's lexicon. I think it'll take longer for mission critical or digital infrastructure and some of these other keywords and tricky phrases that we're rolling out to take.
Yeah, we're already seeing that. I mean, I've seen so much news around
data center
because of what's going on in AI. Suddenly people are asking me again, wait, what do you do?
Yeah. What do you tell people you do?
It depends. I used to say that I would just leave it at commercial real estate, but I work in the digital aspect of commercial real estate and sort of leave it at that.
That's the lamest answer. You're going to have to step your game up.
Well, it depends on who you're talking to.
I guess that part is true. Because some people won't understand no matter which word you use.
But then I would say, basically, no matter what you're doing, essentially you're using somebody else's computer, and those computers have to live somewhere. And so we build the infrastructure that supports all of those computers.
It's hard. I ask everybody, and no one ever has the same answer. Some people really wimp out. They're like, I'm an engineer. I'm like, that's lame. You don't get to talk like that. Like, you have to try to, like, forget everybody that doesn't want to help advance this industry by trying to codify it. Like, we have to memorialize this into a simple term. There's a reason why the reason why this isn't mainstream isn't because it's not the most, there is no industry more important than ours.
No, what we do is super fucking sexy.
It is the coolest industry.
100%.
It is the home of all the banking, of all the eyeball content, video caching. It's the home for the cloud, AI, the home of porn, like
gaming.
Everything goes back.
This industry started with porn.
Well, porn defined a lot of industries. Can you imagine if, like, I was watching something, they're like, well, if they went on beta instead of VHS, and none of us would have grew up with VHS, and that means Blockbuster would have had a completely different product line because the components that, whatever platform they used is what a lot of technology followed. Porn, has shaped a lot of technology based on the adoption from the user, right? So they're like, I don't want that. I want it on a disc or something. They're like, all right, well, that's what we're going to do. Technology is really out there and ahead of demand, right? It's ahead of the curve, they say, right? But we get to be a part of every other industry. Every other industry requires on technology to evolve or grow or scale, and all of that technology they need falls back to a data center. Mm-hmm. I still haven't been able to, but we have to find a way to message what this industry is about to where it has to be understandable at a 7th grade level. That's it. We need to be able to explain that we build farms that house all the demands of technology, right? It's just, that's where your servers are at. Again, you could ask 10 different people You could ask the same person 10 different times and you'll get a different answer from that person. So we haven't arrived yet, but it's because of us, right? We have to figure out what we're all going to agree on. This is the same sheet of music we're going to sing from.
Well, I mean, I said earlier, this industry has a marketing problem on a lot of different levels. And I think that's one of them.
Well said. I don't know why you're not fixing that. What are you waiting on?
I'm trying to.
All right,
give me a minute.
Giddy up.
Okay. I've got to get this Utah project off the ground. We've got to get I Am Women West Coast up and running and my team in place, and then I'll go fix that.
Nice. Well, where did you go when you left digital? You went to Oracle. Do you have a few stops in between?
A few stops in between.
All right, let's hear it.
So from digital, I was recruited to go run sales for Raging Wire, which is now NTT.
Oh, yeah.
So I was there for a few years.
What was their
had
HQ? Sacramento?
A sales team, Sacramento. Yeah.
How was that?
Absolutely. How was Sacramento? Not my favorite.
How was Raging Wire? Because it was going through the transitions.
I was there through the transition. So that was really, really wild to watch. A company that was built by a family, right?
Really?
To be digested by the Borg.
Well, one of the largest, people don't realize how big NTT is.
Oh, I think that no one has any idea the amount of fiber they have in the ground.
Massive company.
Yes, massive company. And I think when I was there was a statistic that from a square footage standpoint, they had more data center than anybody else in the world.
I would look, there was a time where I read something that no one has more humans under their brand operating within data centers than Iron Mountain because of all the smart hand technology and all the people are going in.
Interesting.
So, but like none of those things would surprise me, right? Do you get on with Brittany? Brittany Miller runs all the NTT data center. Maybe she's not there anymore. I had her on this podcast once. She was the first woman on this podcast. Brittany Miller, I think is her last name. Real nice lady. I met her for the first time before the podcast, just like this, except the only difference was I did it like an idiot on like the last day or the day after DCAC where.
Oh, you were spent.
Busted up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Busted up.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I had no business talking to other human beings that day. Right.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because she had to deal with me. The first time she met me, I looked like I was like Nicolas Cage in Living Las Vegas, coming off a conference. I was on my way to the end.
I'll look a little bit like that at the end of a conference. I've definitely, I need to remember to budget an entire recovery, at least evening to myself to just not talk to humans.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. We have our headquarters is like a mile and a half down the road, but our CP, our command post that a lot of the management team operates from is 40 minutes away in Spicewood, and it's in the country. Mm-hmm. And I need to not be around other humans sometimes because people wonder, are you an introvert or an extrovert? And I'm like, I'm kind of an extroverted introvert, I guess, where I recharge when I'm not around people. Or there's certain people, I can only be around certain people to recharge.
I imagine you might be a bit like me. I'm both. So I have one form of battery that gets massively charged when I'm surrounded by people and intelligent people in conversation and I'm having fun and I'm engaged. And I definitely get my battery charged in that way, but it depletes another side while it's doing that. So I'm definitely an extrovert, but I have introverted moments where I have to run away from the world and go hide in my hole for a day or two and not talk to people. Took me years and years and years to figure that out in 2 marriages, but eventually learned that I have to have some kind of space once I get home in order to regroup,
unpackage everything,
hydrate.
Yeah, exactly. Those conferences are tough, man. I went to PTC and I went to PTC last year, but other than my own conference right now, there's not too many I go to, not because I don't think they're amazing. They're all necessary. You'll never hear me sit around and be like, our conference is better than everybody else. They all have a purpose, right? Every one of them has a purpose. Mine, I don't think the industry needed more conferences. I felt it needed a better one. And I wanted to have one that was intentionally designed to create an atmosphere to allow a greater exchange of disruptive thought and idea. I need that diversity. When you and I were engaging, you were, I think, still at Oracle, and I was like, come be on this panel with Carly, and I had weren't you supposed to be on there with Kendra? There was all kinds of savages.
Yes,
Lindsay.
I so wanted to be.
Yeah, and then I think you ghosted me because you're kind of like that.
I did not.
I'm kind of a big deal. I think that you signed Rhonda Burgundy. It's your signature block.
And I did not ghost you. I believe.
Yeah, you had to back up.
that
Fair.
I had to back out for a multitude of reasons, one of which was I believe I resigned from Oracle.
From Oracle. Yeah. You were like, I thought you were like, oh, you were like, I couldn't find a sitter for that week. And I'm
I
like,
also had childcare issues.
yeah. But I was like, I don't give a shit what company you work for. Like no one, like this industry is beautiful like that because nobody, there's only a few people. Like when you think of Kafka, you absolutely think of Google, you think of Furlong, you think of, Meta. And those names transcend and that's who they are. Right. But then there's other people that their own IP is them. It's not the logo on their shirt that day. And they're them, right? So we know who they are. And a lot of those people have enough credibility that they could bring that to other companies with them and help validate those other businesses because they have that.
Yeah, I do think being at Oracle and going to, I firmly believe that that's the dark side, having been on both.
On the enterprise side?
I think the buy side is the dark side. But having been there, I know that being at Oracle was definitely great for my personal branding. And I think that it, grew my network in a tremendous way. I'm so grateful that I was there. And at my core and in my soul, I'm a salesperson and it's who I am and it's what I do. And I needed to get back to that. And this was the right opportunity to do so. It came a little bit sooner than I thought it would. As I was there, I was like, ultimately, years from now, what do I want to do? And it was this. And it sort of fell into my lap way before I thought it would. And it was a big risk, but I'm at a point in my career where I can take that kind of risk. I mean,
Sure.
it's a startup. I say I'm CRO, but I'm also the head of marketing. I'm the head of HR. I'm the head of safety. I'm the head of, pick something. My CEO is also
Everybody's
a lawyer.
wearing-
He's the CFO. He's also,
You all
we're
have
all
collateral
doing-
duties. Yeah.
100%. We wear so many different hats depending on the day. Me being the head of HR is a giant joke, by the way. No one wants that. We were talking about the journey. So I was in NTT for a couple of different years. That was fantastic. I was running a team there, and then got the opportunity to move to Compass. And
Oh, no shit.
Yes.
How long were you at Compass for?
Almost 3 years. A little over 2.
So look, I have a great deal of admiration for Compass and their leadership and some of the people that are there for sure.
As do I. As do I. I think Crosby's absolutely brilliant.
I think that he's probably one of the most impactful leaders this industry has. I'm not saying, let me say it like this, and I don't mean any disrespect to other people.
Right.
He's very relevant.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of people that are fucking giants in this industry because of what they've accomplished. And not that Chris hasn't accomplished plenty and enough, but he's still relevant. Does that make sense? Like some people are just advising now, and we need them too.
Yeah.
But not as many of those guys are still fighting through the mud and the blood and the beer with us sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. His devotion to that company and the culture in that company is unparalleled.
I think that he's a fantastic mentor and sponsor too for a lot of people. He's an advocate for a lot of people without them ever knowing about it, right? So he likes to build people up, and he was a very humbling leader for me. I didn't know Chris for shit. Mm-hmm. Were you there for COVID?
I was there through COVID.
So how about this? I don't know what it was like to be at Compass during COVID. They were one of our first clients. They still are today. I just had Tammy on. Tammy came and did her podcast like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
She's great.
Fantastic human being, right? I took her to Fix to get some food here in town. There's amazing restaurants in town. But, I'm a big fan of Tim. Adil and I once traded pain.
Tim Wakely?
Yeah.
One of my favorite human beings in the world.
He's a good dude, man.
I love him.
Yeah, he's been very fair to us. I mean, look, we're very lucky. We get to do a lot of work with a lot of great people, and Tim and Tammy are one of them, right? And my first relationship with Adil was not very positive. I was just probably disrespectful, right? And I probably was trading pain with him, and I probably I ended up, Jim Smith helped facilitate a time where he and I got to have a conversation. Since then, I've had a great relationship with Adil. And I feel like he's been another influence of me over the last 6-8 months, where I'm pretty confident if I had to call Adil today and ask the question, he would not laugh at, maybe he would laugh at me first and then answer, but he would still help. Does that make sense? And Chris was the one that taught me during COVID. We had just started in November of 2019. And I think I had 7.
I literally started December 5th of 2019.
What a batshit time to start, right? Like I started a company that at 7x24 Phoenix, DCD is 724 Phoenix is when I launched, I think. And
I was there.
No, 11-1, yep. And everyone was awesome. You know, Shap was there, and people were buying us drinks because they knew we were a startup and we were broke. Basically, we didn't even have a client yet. Everyone was the industry was really good to us, and that's why I try to be so good back to it, right? Like people could have shit all over us, and people helped us.
But I think we are. I mean, if I've found anything, I talked about when I started out feeling like this was this huge insurmountable thing. It's so small.
Yeah, the industry?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And for the most part, I mean, there's always going to be your douchebags, but for the most part, everyone's pretty brilliant.
We please ourselves good.
And shows up and works hard. I've rarely seen an industry that has such a motivated group of people.
And it's funny because we're not even mainstream yet, right? We will be, but like when all that shit went down, I'm freaked out. I'm like, shit, how many of my clients are going to pay because they don't need us because we can't travel or blah, blah, blah. And out of nowhere, you know, I'm sitting there freaked out, and Crosby sent me a text message one time and goes, hey, I wanted you to know that we will pay our bills. You could count on us. And if you need anything, let me know. And I did not know Chris very well.
And he means it.
And here's a man that's probably busy taking care of his own team first. And then he's making sure that his clients are taken care of. And then we were nothing, you know, as a partner. We didn't even move the needle. If we weren't ever a partner there, it wouldn't even have hurt them type of thing. They would have found other people to replace us. We weren't bringing any value is what I'm saying. Not yet. It takes time. And for me, I remember thinking that I'm like, that was a pretty humbling moment for me in leadership, right? To see a guy that I wasn't thinking about my fucking partners. I was thinking about my team and my clients. And then that's where I stopped. And he's like, no, you got to keep on going. Right. And since then, I'll tell you this, I don't get the opportunity to talk to him as much as I'd like to sometimes.
Me either.
But when I do, he's pretty spot on the shit that I'll bring to him. And to the point where he'll say things, I'm like, maybe for you, but that ain't gonna happen for us because, you know, blah, blah. And sure as fuck, he's right on the money almost every time. He's predicted a lot of the things that I would go through in my journey as a CEO, and he was right about almost all of them. And the beauty about that was during the highs and the lows, you don't feel like a failure, not in the fetal position as much, because you know that that's part of the journey. Like, you're going to be betrayed. You'll be stabbed. You're going to be betrayed. You're going to have your heart broken. You're going to be stabbed in the back. People are
Been
not,
there.
but it's just part of the game. Like, you're not going to evolve to where you're at without those scars as a leader.
No, and he talks about failure.
But he also
and
talks about the amazing, beautiful things that come from the team,
but
right?
He talks about learning from failure being a necessary part of the journey, and
healthy.
And he talks about, I mean, he has a sign in his office that says "suck less," because you don't need to be excellent. You just need to suck less.
Yeah, he has a lot of that. He has a lot of good stuff. When I say, like, there's a lot of great people in this world, I get to know a lot of fucking badass people. Right. I talked to some incredible people. The guy that was just in here doing a podcast before you was a SEAL Team 6 commander. Okay. And
crazy.
He's a very impressive human being. I get to talk to a lot of those, but I still, like, sometimes you meet some that are just a little bit more different than the others. And I think that Chris is one of them. And I would challenge a lot of people to tell me someone who's had a greater impact. The conversation that Bill Stein and I were having yesterday, and he's going to come to this podcast, was, I challenge you to tell me of any other company that has had a greater impact on this industry than Digital Realty Trust. I'm not saying they're the biggest. I know Equinix is huge, and Equinix has some badass leaders too. But there's not a C-suite that doesn't have someone that worked at fucking Digital in this industry, including you, who worked at Digital, that's now in a C-suite of your own business.
You can't throw a rock
and find someone that wasn't from Digital.
And you're going to hit somebody.
Even the mentors that I had.
I call it my undergrad.
That's probably that's a very well way of describing the education you have in 3 years in this industry.
And that's what it was. I mean, and being at Digital at the time that I was there, with the amazing amount of growth that was going on, that was there, with the particular people that were there. I mean, Dana Roach at the time was running sales engineering, and everyone underneath him was magnificent. I think sales engineers are a rare breed of human being.
I think they're all psychopaths. They probably have heads in their freezers at home. If Frank Burgee of Aligned Energy is listening, I'm talking about you specifically.
I've had some incredible ones, and the best of the best that I have ever known were all part of that organization and worked at Digital under Dana. I didn't know how good
Digital
I
had
had
a
it.
lot of talent. They had a lot
I didn't know how
of talent.
good I had it, right? It was my first foray really into the industry, and
Sucker.
I jumped into being a sales director and my team being the most incredible people and mentors of mine, and had the best engineering staff. I had tons of things to sell, right? We had all kinds of inventory. It was fun. It was an incredibly fun age, and then things shifted and changed, and now we're seeing shift and change again.
I agree. I think, well, listen, going back, so you did get to appreciate the digital model when you went to NTT. Not to say that NTT was miserable, but you don't really understand what you have until you are immersed in another environment.
Completely different animal.
And then you went from that to Compass, which is way more advanced on the leadership side. Like their leaders seem to like each other too. They respect each other. Raymond was supposed to come in like next week to come do one with me too. He's a former
Raymond's who brought me into Compass. So Raymond, I reported to briefly
Marine.
at Digital.
No kidding.
Yes.
All right.
Oh,
well,
Compass, if you scratch the surface,
a lot of that's how it
there's
works.
a lot of Digital alumni there.
Well, you put together your bands and you kind of you keep the band together.
Yeah, no, Raymond's who brought me into Compass. He's fantastic. He's a wonderful man. I've learned so much from him. I learned how to negotiate a contract from him and Noah. I wouldn't understand the financial modeling behind what everything's that we do is. I couldn't do my job I have now if I hadn't learned what I learned from Raymond when I was at Compass. There's no way.
That's to that point though. I'm like, how many of us are when I was talking to Stein, I was like, I want you to come help me unpackage the impact that digital has had on this industry. And he's a pretty humble guy. You know, that's not his thing, is to go be like, hey man, we're pretty awesome. Because he was the first to be like, what about these other companies? Like, dude, they're going to have their time to talk about their shit too.
Yeah.
But we're trying to document the genesis of this industry. And to do that, I need to have those pioneers that started it. What was Dave Ferdman going through when he was originally founding Cyrus One, you know, and I've had the opportunity to sit down with him too. And like, these guys have some pretty savage stories. I like to feel like I'm taking risks. You're an entrepreneur. You're taking risks, but they were taking risks at a completely different altitude and airspeed, right? And look,
100%.
But it's not that we can't. But those are the ones that inspire us to go do the same, right?
Absolutely. But I'm taking a calculated risk on something that I know is going to succeed, and whether it's me that succeeds or someone else doing the model that we're doing.
The power is demanding wherever you're at. As soon as you
it.
have it online, someone's buying it from you.
Oh, they're going to buy it way before it's online.
But I mean, they're not going to buy it unless you have a shovel in the ground. If you point at a piece of land, say, I own this and I could have this for you in 30 months, they're not going to move the needle on that. Even when
No. You have to have an SLA on the delivery of the power and the infrastructure, 100%. And that will be pre-leased.
Yeah. If you don't have something more guaranteed, because you're seeing that same challenge or protest of resistance in the emerging markets like in Mexico or Africa or other places where they don't have shit, it's underserved. And you're trying to get large people that are pretty sophisticated. A lot of these customers that we deal with today are armed to the teeth. Would you agree?
Oh.
Well, think about it. You were on the buyer side for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on. So Compass.
Compass.
How long were you at Compass
Which is
for?
the first time.
3 years?
Almost, I think. I don't know.
And then you.
But that was the first, like, single tenant hyperscale, hadn't done that before, right? So, and that was just emerging, and really looking at facilities from a single tenant perspective was just emerging in the industry when I started, because it was 2019. So whole buildings being taken down was new.
Now it's whole campuses.
And now the campuses are 10x, 100x what they used to be.
Yeah, everybody's banking as much people and power as they can right now for capacity, right? And
I hope so.
I know so, right? So we're seeing, we're all reading the tea leaves here, and it's just there's never bin a more exciting time to be in this industry. Do you agree? And
I'm having so much fun.
I was talking last night I was at dinner with some guys, and before we went to the show, and I was like, man, we're in the gold rush, and he's been in this industry for 20 years. He's like, Kirk, that's the 5th time I heard this. I'm like, but the 4 times you heard it before that, AI wasn't rolling. I said, it's rolling now. You're not getting that genie back in the bottle. I'm like, it's not going to do anything but grow in its adoption. So although you may have heard it a few times, and I agree, there's a lot of bullshit where people are like, oh, modular is going to be everything. Everything's going to be on the edge. Or there's all these trades. Everything's going to be,
There's buzzwords, right?
And there's a lot of stupid people that regurgitate that shit at those conferences, which is why I go to the networking around those conferences in orbit of it, but I'm like, I don't need to hear that. That's bullshit. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm seeing this. I get to see and I have access into a lot of operators and enterprise groups and what they're doing. I get to read the tea leaves.
Yeah, and you've got your hands in a lot of different aspects of the industry, right? So I've historically been really focused on one thing. So I do think it's beneficial for you, not just having these conversations, but that, you know, what you're doing has your hands in all different aspects of this business. Yeah, for sure.
Because there's 5 phases of the data center life cycle. And, you know, the first phase is that development requirement. And that's where you're at too, right? You're on that first phase where the development requirements are being made to make a business case to justify deploying capital.
Absolutely. And the biggest next step, and what I've told my partners all along, is that we cannot and will not do anything until we have a power delivery date, period, dot.
Yeah, you can't go sell and trade on your equity, your own professional equity on that, knowing that.
No, and that's what we're developing with our power. And I will have an SLA exactly on it's going to take exactly this amount of months to deliver. And we're starting the moment that you sign, and it's this date from signature.
Yeah. Also, look, like I said, I don't think we've released, I don't know how long it takes to get these podcasts out sometimes, but we recorded his like 2-3 weeks ago. Good dude. And I met him at PTC, and then I started talking to him because he was stationed, I mean, he went to the Coast Guard Academy, which is on the Thames River, and I was in New London, Connecticut on the other side of the river, right? So I literally would look at the Coast Guard Academy every morning when I was going to work, you know? So we were on the other side of the pond together, so to speak, and then shared some stories. Awesome guy. But going back, so you were at Compass and then you left. Is that when you went to Oracle?
That is.
So what did it,
what the dark side.
So one of my co-founders is an Oracle guy too. We helped him go get a job there when.
But I don't mean that Oracle is the dark side.
Yeah, but the buyer side.
I just mean being on the buying side.
I got you. Yeah. Nothing negative towards Oracle, of course. But like, what made you want to take that leap to go get on the other side of the ball? Because, you know, you're on this side of the ball with us now. And that's the customer side is over here. And that's more comfortable maybe sometimes, especially if you're a buyer. Like, did you find these trends where everyone wanted to be your friend now?
Well, it's so funny. People think it's sexy. It's not. It is.
So what's it like?
It's so many different things.
Because I did think that all you did was sit around, like, not you, but like, if you're sitting around signing leases, you're like, I would like to make sure that I had red M&Ms in my bowl and no green ones.
100% no. Hard no.
Really?
I've never met an underappreciated group of people.
Really?
Like a lot of the people that are in site selection that we talk to.
Give me some
I promise you, I've never worked so hard in my life from an hours perspective. So I was in partnership with John Gartrell and a few others. We essentially handled the EMEA buying. I took most of the European stuff because he wanted to go play with the Middle East and Africa because it was more interesting for him. Mm-hmm. Our days started usually around 5 a.m. Talking to Europe, right?
Yeah.
So it's their afternoon, it's my morning. That's generally around. I had lots of meetings at like 3:30 in the morning.
That's your punishment for living in California still.
That's my punishment for being on the left coast. It's fine. And that was not the hard part, but your day would go on and through dinner. I mean, it was the amount that they're trying to manage, this way that they're trying to scale, the fires that you're trying to put out, the exponential growth that they need. It's too much for the team that's there.
Oof.
And
Did
that's
you get
not
burned out?
Their fault. I didn't get burned out. I got an opportunity to go do what I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
No, it was fantastic. And it was, like I said, it was good for my personal brand. It was good. I got to meet everybody, right? I got to talk to everybody.
You learn a lot more too that way, don't you? Like,
learn so much about how they work and what they need, and learn that all those deals that I beat myself up about losing, I probably shouldn't have beat myself up about because I was never going to win in the first place. Learned a lot about the actual site selection process and what goes into it. Learned about how the different approvals are done and all the way up the chain. I mean, I was sitting on Christmas Eve, I believe, waiting for Larry to approve something. I was in Hawaii. Yeah. It was crazy. He
had to approve your guys' deals?
But there was an aspect of it that needed to be approved by the board. Okay. So once deals get to a certain size, they have to go to the board. And all the deals are that size now.
No kidding.
So yeah, you're looking at Safra and Larry and board approval on stuff that you're working on. So you do feel effective. You do feel like you're affecting change. But there is so much growth for all of them. Whether it's Amazon or Google or Meta or Oracle, they're all growing at such a pace that there isn't enough policy and procedure in place to understand how to do that or to how to adapt that fast. There isn't enough people trying to manage and take on all of those different things. I mean, I think they're all hiring and they're all trying and working at it. It's not like they're neglecting their people by any means. It happened like this. And so from the day that I started to the day that I left, it was a completely different company, a completely different buy cycle.
Oh, wow.
Nobody's doing an RFP anymore. There's no time.
Yeah.
It's not like you can go out and there's enough in the marketplace where you're going to go compare apples to apples, 15 different sites. It doesn't exist.
Did you think that had a really negative impact on the broker community then? Because the brokers were the ones that were leading all those big deals up in those days.
I mean, the broker community, as far as I know from a site selection perspective, is really not involved in the hyperscale deals.
They're just on the land acquisition side now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Because all of those hyperscalers brought people like me
that are sophisticated
and other people in, certainly more sophisticated than me, to do that job, right? Because they had to bring that in-house. And that's what those people do. It was hard. It was hard work. It was frustrating at times because decisions are being made so quickly and so far above your head. But had great leadership, worked with amazing people. And the reason that I chose to go to Oracle is they were my client and I loved that team.
Yeah.
So it was an easy decision when that was an opportunity that was handed to me to go look at how the other side lives. Because I thought a little bit like you too. I was like, I'm going to go and it's going to be so much fun and I'm going to get to buy stuff.
Yeah, I don't have to...
And I'm going to get to make decisions. And that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near.
It's a bloodbath over there, huh?
It's
not on Oracle, but on
bloodbath.
On the procurement side, it's tough right now.
It's tough. I went from being, the supply and the demand flip-flopped.
Yeah.
Really quickly.
Yeah, there was basically no supply and nothing but demand.
And there was nothing but demand. I couldn't give stuff away in Texas when I was with NTT. Not NTT's fault. Great building, long sold. But the Dallas market hit such a lull for such a long time. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, it's all gone. And now there's hundreds of megawatts being sold all over the place, all over, things have moved south of Dallas. It's just, it changed on its head so fast. There was a race to the bottom from a pricing perspective.
That's changed. Significantly, yep.
Significantly. We're seeing, above $150 per kW for hyperscale deals in major markets, which is insane.
I think that it was just a correction. I think that there was
I think
natural.
The pendulum's swinging too far in both directions, though.
That's the Goldilocks thing again, like I said, right? It always, it always needs a chance to settle in just right. And I think that we over-rotated as an industry when we started growing. And at the same time, you had everyone that was trying to race to the bottom in terms of, there was a time where the product was the product itself, which was, well, let me take a look at the design. And they'd have their big fat brain come in and play stump the chump on you on what they're for. Is it a block redundant, distributed redundant? Is it a four? And they would go through and they'd try to figure out where the weaknesses are. And you're like, it's all fucking 2 in SLA. They're all the same.
They're all the same.
5 nines, block
Nobody's
redundant.
Nobody's white space is better than somebody else's.
No one's picking, hey,
to a large degree, right? So there are small nuances of difference between product. I'll give you that.
Not
but
anymore.
It's so commoditized.
The product is volume and velocity now. That's
100%.
And anybody that doesn't have a really solid OFCI strategy, they're screwed. They haven't seen a VMI strategy, like vendor management.
I didn't even know what OFCI was until I started working at Compass.
Yeah.
That was really when we started talking about it, because 2019, we're starting to talk about supply chain. We're starting to talk about different issues than I'd ever looked at before. But you're 100% correct.
I think, and then when you went there, have you ever had a job? Like I took a job once, and as soon as I got there, I've made a mistake. But I was like, you know what? I'm always good for 2 years, right? I had cancer once, and the doctors once gave me like this thing and a message, and it changed my mindset, and the optics and how I view my life changed significantly from that. And when that happened, I would, like when people would come to interview me, I don't know if I was ever really on the market, but people would come up. I'm sure you get unsolicited shit all the time. I'm sure most of my team does too. And it's flattering, hey, cool, man. People see that I could offer something
I think if you're doing a good job, you get job offers.
It's cool, right? And the people I tend to want to hire, they're not on the market. I can't hire people that are happy where they're at, because no one leaves when they're happy. People don't leave people need three things fundamentally, right? They need to be inspired by who they're working with or what they're doing. And then they need to feel safe, right? And safety is different for all of us. I mean, we're in a very kinetic environment. A lot of bad things could happen to people, but safe really means like, can I fail here? Fail forward, fail up, like you would say. What if I ask stupid questions? Will they fire me? Like safety is, I need to be protected from the politics and the diplomacy of this place because I don't know these people, or maybe I'm a demographic that's different than the others, or whatever. Safety is whatever. Whatever the most concerning thing of safety is for you, whatever the most concerning thing of safety is me, for whatever it is, it's the worst for us and they're equal, right? But the last part is the fulfillment side. And I've learned that you can't be fulfilled by what you're doing unless you're in service of your purpose while you're trying it, right? So if I look at those three dimensions and I look at what I'm doing.
That's me.
All right.
We can pause.
No, you're good. And sometimes it's me and I don't care. So my train of thought though was there's things that people need to be fulfilled. And I took a job once because I'm going to take risks. Like I don't care. Like I don't care how many times I fail, and I don't care if people are happy for me. Like I grew into a stage a long time ago where affirmation is great, but it's something that we lead the way we want to be led, and I was led without a lot of that, so I learned how to lead without a lot of it, which is a weakness and a blind spot. Which is why I have people that come in and help me, and they coach me and teach me how to become a better leader. But at the same time, I'm like, you have to be willing to go take a job and take a risky one in hopes that it'll work out. And if you can't, then you care too much what other people think about you and your career anyway. So you're not meant to be doing anything of significance. You should be part of the sheeple that is part of the cog that we need too, right?
Yeah.
But those ones that are disruptive, that are going to go out and be change agents of some kind, like they're going to be willing to go take shitty jobs. I've taken one that I had talked to that company for years. They were a client, right? And then I went to go work for them. As soon as I was there, I was like, this is a fucking mistake. I should not be here. But I was like, what can I gain and what can I learn in the next 2 years? The construct for me was typically in increments of 2 years. And if I liked it, then I would essentially re-enlist in my mind and be like, I'll be here for another 2 years. But my rule to myself was I refused to spend a day of what could potentially be the last 2 years of my life doing something that I'm unhappy doing. Right. Yeah. So I stopped. Right. And I loved shop. I didn't leave online because I left because there's a long story behind a person that inspired me to go make this big change in my life.
Yeah.
And I haven't really shared that story with anybody yet, but at some point I'm sure that'll arrive. But that is what made me wake up and say, like, I'm going to make some changes in how I treat my career. Right. And maybe I stopped partying so hard at some of these conferences. And so, I was hosting one by then. But I had to go take risks and I had to go take jobs that others were afraid of. It sounds like you didn't have that fear. And that's a really great testament to a strong leader, is you have to be willing to go do things that others are going to be probably measuring and weighing too much and overthinking, where you're like, let's try it. Right. So you went straight from this broker thing into digital, into NTT, into Compass, into Oracle. All powerhouse brands within industry. And then you needed to play all those bases and learn all those lessons.
I couldn't do what I'm doing now if I hadn't done all of those things.
Yeah. But you also needed mentors and sponsors along the way. Do you have any that you keep in touch with?
Absolutely. Nancy Novak at Compass is...
Never met her.
Nancy is unbelievable.
I've never heard anything otherwise, actually.
She is sharp as a tack. She's funny. She's incredibly humble, but... look at the resume.
Yeah, she intimidates the shit out of a lot of people. I think that's why a lot of people avoid her, probably.
And she's lovely. She shouldn't intimidate anybody.
No, I'm not saying I'm intimidated, but yeah, I've been around a lot of people.
And I would say, when I've heard that before.
Yeah,
and it's one of the things but when people say that someone's intimidating, it's like, no, you're intimidated.
No, well, listen,
there's a difference.
Women have a lot of power in this industry too, right? Like, listen, we're sitting here right now. Let's say, for instance, I did, something that you found unfavorable. It doesn't take much to destroy someone these days. Like, I would be guilty until proven innocent type of thing. Does that make sense? And there's a lot of the more powerful, I'm talking to you because I respect you and I like you and I'm just having a standard conversation. We want to fill a divide. I'm like, I could understand why there's a lot of women, and as they grow more in power, there's more guys that are like, I don't want to be around that because that woman of power has the ability to shut people down in a heartbeat. So I'm like, well, then just don't talk like an asshole around them. It's that simple.
Yeah, don't be a dick.
If you can't moderate yourself around people, then yeah, don't hang out with them.
But men have always had the power to do that to women. There are a few couple of words that you call a woman and you take away her integrity immediately. So it goes both ways, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. I don't think of it in that way.
But I strongly believe that when women specifically are called intimidating, what you're actually saying is you're intimidated. I'm not actively trying to be
That's not a negative overtone.
right? No. But
there's plenty of dudes that are intimidating too.
They're sure, but I think that particular word, when used with women, I'd like to flip the script a little bit and say, I'm not intimidating. You're just intimidated.
I think you could be right. I think we could both be right. Like, I don't know. Like,
sure.
Listen, I don't run around in fear with people.
Both can be true. And she's fantastic. She's been an incredible mentor. Heather Dooley, who I mentioned, who's
another powerful woman.
Another incredible woman. She's been a wonderful mentor to me. Kevin Shanahan, who I miss very dearly, he was a wonderful mentor.
Everyone I talked about said.
And he took me under his wing immediately, shared everything with me, gave me a responsibility up above and beyond what he had to, and made sure that I was coached and taken care of and supported in order to do a good job. And when I left, was like, you tell me what you need. And if you need contacts, if you need anything, if I can help you, I always will. And every time I was in Seattle, I would always make sure I had dinner with him and his husband. He and his husband were at my wedding.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And there were a lot of people from the industry at my wedding. There are so many people that I keep in contact with, and I wouldn't have the job I have now if I hadn't stayed in contact with eBay's lawyer from 9 years ago.
Yeah.
How we build those relationships is so important, and that's how I've gotten everywhere that I've gotten. Is relationships built. But there's wonderful mentors and mentorship out there for me. Now I get to do the opposite.
Yeah, it's like, are you mentoring people right now?
Yeah, I do. I have one woman specifically that I'm mentoring, and she's incredible. And I think it's silly sometimes when I'm asked to do that. I'm like, what do I know? And then we start talking, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I know a couple of things. I've put a few things together in the last 10 years.
Sure.
But I think for me, having a balance and that diversity in who mentors me as well is important. So if I went to only women, I'd only learn one voice in one particular thing. So there are men and there are women both that are mentors to me for sure.
I just kind of look at them through one. There's just leaders. And I just, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't give a shit where they come from. And look, there's no rank either. There's women that work on our team that are leaders. Like, I have a marketing lady that if she came up to me and said something, she's like, hey, you need to shut the hell up and listen to this. What do you think I'm going to say? Okay. You don't get to talk to me like that. I'd be like, what did I do wrong? Let's hear it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's why we hire them. We hire women, like, we hire a lot of former military, and the beauty about the military is very diverse already, right? They don't give a shit about a lot of those things. The military does a good job of saying that we don't care about your religion. Put it on your dog tag. Like, okay, so if, we don't care who you love, all right? Keep that shit to yourself. I'm not going to tell you.
Is it 42 gets you in boots?
42 gets you in boots?
Yeah. I think the Army test that you got to take if you get a 42.
Oh, well, that's like, if you can stop a bullet with your body, you're in. You're hired, right? So like, I've never ran out of jokes against the Army people that are listening. So and it never gets old to talk shit on the Army. And
that's terrible.
I have a son that's getting ready to go Army too. It's even worse, but it's never going to end. I mean, he'll probably have to. There's going to be some adoption talks in there, I'm sure, if he gets commissioned in the Army. But typically, yes, you're right. If you score higher on your tests in the military, you don't have to be in the Army. Is that what you're talking about? Like, if you scored...
No, I was saying there's not a tremendous amount of discrimination of who they'll let into the military.
No, that's true. It used to be a plan B, and there used to be a low standard. And we all joke about that shit because... I mean, like, I don't know what you know about me, but every man in my lineage is military. Mm-hmm. I was born and raised on military bases by men that were born and raised by military as well, right? And there's a difference between the way that I was probably raised and others, right? And there's a difference in all those branches. And I got to kind of see that. I was born and raised on Air Force bases. I had a brother that was Air Force, another one that was Army. And I knew that I didn't want to do that, right? Because I was like, those don't sound like fun. Those sound like the JV, like the pulling guard, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I want to be in the pocket like the quarterback, and I felt like the Navy was the best branch for that. So all the people that are listening that I talk shit on all the time, I just felt like it was a more intellectual branch that had a broader, wider range of things I could do. It has its own Army, called the Marine Corps, Department of the Navy. It has its own Air Force. It has its own Air Force ships. It's got a Naval Special Warfare Group. It's got a submarine. It's got a nuclear Navy. There's just too many things that it had where I'm like, these other ones seem boring. I want to get into one of these other branches. there is a difference in the way that it conditioned my mind, though, for sure. Have you seen a difference between the people that you work with, between like, can you tell if there's a veteran around the people that you're working with or no?
If you have a long enough conversation.
What gives it away?
Depends on if it's a male
They'll normally tell you they're a military, maybe?
Sometimes they'll tell you that'll give it away for sure. It depends on if it's a man or a woman. A lot of times there's a difference in the physicality, right? Generally speaking, people who've been in the military have muscle definition. They have some care for how they take care of their bodies. There's a lot of linear thinking and operational thinking that I think is complementary to our industry. I think
I'm just curious.
I think it takes a special human being to be able to be in the military and follow orders. I couldn't do it. There's no way.
Well, it's definitely not for everybody, but it's a great place to be from. It could be a really shitty place to be sometimes, depending on your deployments, right? But 100%. It's a great fraternity to be a part of, or sorority to be a part of. And I'm a better person for having done that. And I know that it had a pretty profound impact on everyone throughout my life, right? Mm-hmm. Most of my heroes growing up, they weren't celebrities of some sort of sport, you know, and they weren't even celebrities of industry, right? They were typically people in the military. Like I grew up and read every Chuck Yeager book. Do you know who Chuck Yeager is? He broke the sound barrier, the first man to do it.
So I'm from Nevada City where he did it.
Okay. So you are. All right. But like that was a legend. That's the OG in my eyes, because that was a regular cowboy on a rocket, right? I mean, like there was no guarantees. That was a pioneer of test aviation and all the other people that he did it with. And he was the tip of the spear because he wasn't an officer, didn't go to college. He was an officer, but he didn't go to graduate college. Because he didn't graduate college, he didn't get into the NASA program like all the rest of the test pilots. But he was one of the best test pilots that I ever had, right?
Yeah, and I think we need to throw that out the window.
Yeah, I do have, I think that will eventually wing itself. I'm not even like an advocate for or against it. I just think that there's too many people now that are wasting their time studying things that are obsolete 4 years from now because economies are changing everything. I mean, we're in a digital economy now. The number one commodity in the world is data instead of oil. There's a lot of things that are shifting. The landscape on power is going to be shifting it even faster and further.
I would agree. I also believe in education for education's sake. I believe in higher education.
I believe
Absolutely.
in learning. I don't know what education looks like, but I could tell you learning is really important.
Yeah, I just think the piece of paper and the way that we've attributed it value and the way that specifically we talked about hiring, there are so many jobs that say they require a 4-year degree. Why? And I think it's just it's a culling process, right? It's a way to thin out the amount of people who apply for the job.
I think it used to be because it was the only way to validate that you could start and finish something. But there's a lot of people coming out of the military that can do that, and they have crafts, trades, skills coming out of the military like you would if you were in the trades itself. But shifting back into like, I really want to understand how I can help with the platforms that we have for you to have a greater impact on what you're trying to do on the iMason side as well. Like obviously I'm in your corner and everything you're doing with E3, and we know some folks too, and we want to be in orbit. Let us be part of the ecosystem. But how do we help? You guys have technically she's a junior, that'd be my daughter, and 6 years from now maybe she is done with institution if she goes to college or whatever. So I have 6 years to figure out how women. I personally have a 6-year counter to make sure that if my daughter were to enter this market, there would be no barriers to her. There's no clubs that she can't get a part of or be a part of. She has to earn her way in. Mm-hmm. There is no equal results. I don't give a shit if you're a black, white woman. It does not matter. The only thing that I give a shit about in equality is the opportunity. Because if you cannot guarantee me an equal effort, then there should not be equal results. And people, I think, get locked on equality by trying to hope that we have equal results for everybody. And I'm like, equal opportunity is the most important thing. Everybody needs it. I want to see who's going to work, because people that have the same opportunity that don't have talent may have the ability to outwork people. And those are the people that I like to hire because they don't rely on their talent. They actually do better when losing. Losing is the greatest thing that could happen to people, because a lot of really talented people quit doing things the minute that they may be like, I see it in sports. I see athletes that are fantastic and have dominated 2-time state champions and this and that. They go to college and guess what? Everyone's a 2-time state champion there. They're not special anymore.
Right.
And now they can't survive and thrive unless they're the best in the room. And now everyone that was the best in the room is in the same room. So strength through attrition kind of thins the herd, right?
Right. People who only like to do what they're already good at.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they know that they're going to be successful to some level. No, I agree, but I think what you're asking is what do we do? How do we make it better? How do we create more opportunity? I don't have that answer. I have a couple of answers. And there's lots of different resources and places that we can go look for those answers. What I think I can do is network and be as communicative and open as I possibly can, talk about my experience as much as I can. I think that holding each other up, being positive, supporting each other is a huge part of what we can do. And that can be on a professional, a personal level. I think that more education and outreach, and we're doing masterclasses, and WTF is doing masterclasses, and there are other resources for things like that you can access. I think the most important thing that we can do is we need the representation, right? So we need to see more diversity and inclusion and more women, because that's what we're talking about.
But we need to see
in leadership
more
roles.
Yeah, but I agree, but I disagree.
You got to see it to believe you can do it, and
there needs to be more opportunities for it.
There needs to be
but
more
we're not
opportunities
plugging people
for
in
it.
roles because they.
I don't say that they should get into the role simply because they're a woman. You got to earn it.
100%.
You got to be there.
That's what I'm saying. Opportunity. I'm with you.
But they need the opportunity to be in those roles, right?
I agree.
And so because so many times what we've seen historically is someone gets hired and gets into leadership because they were good at it, and then goes and hires their buddy they went to college with, and they end up having a team that looks exactly like them and has the same thinking.
Which is the dumbest thing.
Right, which is the dumbest thing that you can do. And so I think looking outside of our known entities, right, and looking for soft skills and looking for different things and empowering people to do something maybe they've never done before. If I had only ever applied for a job that I fit the job description for, I wouldn't be here. Right?
Yeah.
I've faked it till I made it so many times. And now I'm at a point where I feel like I don't have to do that anymore, but I certainly did. And there was a lot of pushback from me that I didn't have the qualifications necessarily that I needed. But again, I worked my ass off and I made sure that I did that job.
On the shoulder. That's the
That's serves me sometimes, not all the time. But I think that seeing more women in leadership roles and hearing more of our voices is important. The other thing that I think is the biggest and most important piece is advocacy, right? Is when I'm in a conference room and I'm the senior person in the conference room and I have to explain that when the client walks in, I can't offer them, can I get you a cup of coffee? do you need something to drink? They're going to think I'm the assistant.
See, I don't think about that shit.
Right? Why would you? You wouldn't have to. I do. Why don't I wear a skirt? Because I don't, or didn't used to. I do now, but I wouldn't wear skirts for a long time because everyone thought I was the assistant. But it's the advocacy, and it's the advocacy when I'm not in the room. So it's also, when I'm trying to make a point and I'm not being heard or listened to, the gentleman that does get heard and listened to sitting next to me saying, hey, I think Rhea had something to say. I'd like to hear this. I think that is interesting. It's when you see someone behaving badly, actually saying to that guy, hey, dude, knock it off.
Yeah.
And there isn't enough of that.
Yeah.
So I think that advocacy, and it starts small.
Yeah.
Right? It's at the big corporate level, but I think it's just in how we communicate with each other and changing our language in small ways and changing those subtle behaviors and the sort of micro insults that we don't necessarily always think of. I think conferences are a big part of that. I have seen so much bad behavior at conferences.
You haven't even been to mine.
I haven't been to yours. So
oh no, I promise you, every year there's alcohol-related incidents. Every year
there's bad
dumping people out of
behavior.
bars. But I don't give a shit. You're going to find that my business is not an incubator for society's problems,
everywhere.
and that's going to happen everywhere.
100%. But so what do? This is just me. I have a handful of men that I know, that I love, that I trust.
They got your back.
That always have my back.
Yeah.
Right? That I know are within viewing range of me if we're out and we're networking and we're doing something. So if I'm unhappy or I feel uncomfortable, they've got it. They'll take care of me. They walk me home. They make sure that everything's
That's how it works.
taken care of. That's how it works.
There's a lot of good people in this industry. There's a lot of
so
good
many
stuff
good
in this
people.
Yeah.
There are two people, and you know who you are, that if I text them cantaloupe, that means come save my ass.
That's the call sign?
That's the call sign. If they get cantaloupe from me, that's come save me. And I've had to use it.
Oh, wow.
And not because someone was doing something indecent.
But you were just...
But I was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it's things like that.
But that's the network. So if you want to know the truth, as a father of a daughter who is awesome, I'd like her to be in this industry if she wants to, and I want her to have less limitations and less risk, and I want her to have people to text cantaloupe pictures to or whatever it is that you do, because she needs that. But I want there to also be this sorority of women that are also coaching these younger people coming in. I promise you that I'm coaching younger people transitioning. When we're hiring kids right out of college, every year we hire kids right out of college or right out of the military, and we do our part that we have to do to sit down and make sure, like, hey, you see that? And if you touch any of these people, like, you're gone. This industry you're out. Right. And like, we do a pretty good job, I like to think, of policing ourselves. There's always going to be somebody with a bowl of loudmouth soup in them, and they're going through some shitty circumstances in their lives. And
in any industry, anywhere you go. At all times. We happen to be fairly male dominated. And that does change the dynamic in the room, no matter what. It just does.
Look, in ways that I don't understand, but I get it. But I could say this: I govern everything I do, and I measure everyone around me on intent. I govern based on intent. Like, you may do the wrong things, but it doesn't make you a bad person. What was your intention? Did you fuck up on accident, or were you trying to 100%. Harm me or attack me? Because there's plenty of times where people have done things that have been not helpful for me, and I'm like, why? And they're like, I thought I was helping. I'm like, all right, well, listen, you didn't. Let's figure out a way to not drill holes in the boat next time when you do this, like, use this instead of that, or don't say these things, or do say those things, so it's iterative. Everyone's learning. Everyone's in a different stage or phase of their career.
For sure. And I'm hoping that, organizations like I Am Women, or WTF, or whichever, Cloud Girls, there's a multiple of them out there.
You got to go create your own. Go get punk rock on this. You and Carly go figure out something, make another one. I'm not saying iMason's like
iMason's Women is an incredible group of women, and I'm so privileged to be in and amongst them. And I got there honestly because Nancy Novak didn't have enough time to fulfill all of her duties, and so I was her proxy for a long time, and they just kept me.
How cool is that?
It's the best. It's the best. And now, I'm heading up the West Coast.
You shouldn't be like, listen, when I say intimidating, that's not a negative thing, right? That's actually a positive thing.
It is for you. I don't think it is for everybody. And the word intimidating, I think, has some negative connotation.
What do you think the connotation is?
That there's intent behind that.
I think that there's just someone who has power, just like a man. I'm just not intimidated by men or women that much, you know what I'm saying? Because I've been around enough people to where I'm like, the people that are celebrities to me are the people that aren't really typically celebrities to others.
Right.
The people that intimidate me because of their heroism or their selflessness. It's not because of how tall they stand on top of the world so people could see them.
Right. How much money they've made.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing it's a powerful thing for women to have that ability to neutralize the ego of man by being intimidating. And I look at that and I'm like, I'll tell you what I've learned with having a 16-year-old daughter, which means I've learned it all, right? What I've learned is there's no such thing as a perfectly balanced anybody. They're all either girls. I've learned with girls and all the daughters' friends that I've seen where there's only two types. I've never met once in my life a perfectly balanced child, man or woman, young, girl or boy. They're either, what do you get? Either not enough confidence, and that leads to what? Right? Or they have too much, and that leads to what? Which are the ones that you want? Do you rather have them a little too quiet, maybe a little bit less confident, maybe more insecure, and they don't feel, or do you want them to be like, I'm a boss bitch and I own this room. What are you doing? Can I get some coffee? You know what I'm saying? Like, not that those are two extremes, but they normally fall into one of those binary camps. I have yet to find the perfectly balanced anybody that's in the middle. It's like, they got it on lockdown. You know what I'm saying? Because the minute that they do, then another social dynamic of chemistry is introduced into their life, and that whole model's disrupted, right? So I'm like, you get to either have it a little too hot or a little too cold. Pick which one you want, because I don't know how to make it just right. And I'd rather have the one that's a little too spicy that I could pull backwards and be like, hey, listen, because those ones will maybe get you more phone calls home from the school, from the teachers, because they have a bigger opinion, or they're doing certain things, but they're not going to be intimidated and overwhelmed by anybody else in this room. And I've tried to raise my daughter to be intimidated by no man or woman.
I think that what you're saying is true across any gender.
You're right.
I don't think that that's indicative
I just don't think it's a
only
negative,
of women.
Is what I'm saying. I just don't see it as a negative. I'm like, dude, Crosby's an intimidating person. If you don't know any better and you're standing right there next to him.
Crosby and I had the conversation once about his being intimidated or people feeling intimidated by him. And quite often
It's on the others.
It is on others. And he and I would joke about the fact that, I have resting bitch face real bad. And he would say that he does too. And we joke about the fact that we're both sitting there thinking about lunch and people are like,
Why are they
what's
so
wrong?
angry?
Are you okay? Oh my God. It's, so I think there's some of that factor. I think
you
he's also
understand?
very intense. And I think when people are intense, that can be intimidating. And I don't care what gender you are.
I don't see it as a negative though still.
You don't. And that's great. And some people do. But I think, as we say, would we rather have our girls spicy or not? I can understand what you're saying from a dad perspective. Like, I want to make sure she can go protect herself and take care of herself. But people need to be encouraged to be exactly who they are. Right. And so I think insecurity presents itself in a lot of different ways. And so I would challenge that by saying a lot of times when I see someone who comes out, and especially when it's a man, and they come out and they say how intimidating they are, they're the most insecure.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
And we need our introverted, thoughtful,
you just want confidence.
Complementary. Confidence comes in so many different forms, though, and we gain our confidence in so many different ways.
There's only one way to gain it, and that's to earn it. You can't lie to yourself to get yourself confident. You cannot lie to you. You can lie to everybody but yourself.
It comes with practice.
Yeah, well, you can't lie. Either you practiced or you didn't. I'm confident because I know I practiced. If I know I didn't practice hard enough, then I'm not going to be confident.
It comes with practice, and I don't care if you're a man or a woman or somewhere in between.
Yep. Listen, what matters most to you? These are the last questions before we bring this one home. Like, what is it that you want people to know about you, E3?
We didn't talk about Everest.
Jeez. Hey, listen, what was that? Give me the Cliff Notes version of that, and we'll have to talk about it later. Look, it is maybe my fault because I'm like that, but what was it like? You went to the summit, right?
I can't believe that we've run through this amount of time already.
I had a bio break.
You had a 2-minute bio break, and we've run through this amount of time. It's very easy to talk to you, and I'm very grateful for being here. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming. Look, I've told you this. It's harder than you think to get women that want to come be on a pod, even get in on panels. And I feel bad because I have to keep going to my same friends all the time. Like, can I use you again? And it's not like I'm trying to check boxes, but I'm like, I don't know other women that feel confident about going up and talking about anything and owning their own shit all the time.
Well, ask me. I know lots of women that'll do it.
Well,
and we're encouraging and trying to implement some training for women, because if you've never done it and you've never been on a panel, how do you know you can do it? It's scary to go do. It's scary to get up in front of your peers and try and say that you're a subject matter expert, right? So I think having some training, and I know that Amber, Carmela, and Nancy Novak did some public speaking training last year.
Nice.
I think we should do a little bit more of that. And I think encouraging younger women specifically to stand up and speak and be on panels. So I'm here to support you as much as I can.
You know, like, I'll tell you, I lied when I said, like, I'm not intimidated by those people. There's only one woman in this industry that intimidates me, but I love her. Mercy Rangelman. Like, I think she's a badass. I used to work with her at Active or at Align for a little bit. She was one of the coolest.
I love that woman.
She's fantastic.
She's the best.
She'd roll with us and she would hang with us.
Absolutely.
And not a lot of women were able to roll like when we were rolling, because she could go beer for beer with us. She was like the captain of the rowing team. She was a national champ. She's a boss bitch.
She's not just a boss bitch. She's also a girl's girl.
Yeah, dude, I think she's awesome.
She's one of the original I Am Women founders.
Is she? That doesn't surprise me either.
She's fantastic. I love Mercy. She and I always lose our voice together at PTC. She is incredibly supportive of other women. She's hell of a good time.
Yeah, she's fun.
And smart as hell. She's the best of the best.
She's a competitor. I like being around people that want to win, because it pays to be a winner. Everyone wants to be a winner, but no one wants to pay the price to be one. And she's one of those hustlers that you know is always going to get out. She's going to outwork everybody. And I always admired that and respected her. So she's the only one that ever intimidated me, I guess. But
love her.
Not really in that way, but she's awesome. Listen, I hope that this isn't the end, right? This is hopefully just the beginning. And I know that Carly's working on some things that she's going to do too. Carly's a pretty special cat on our team, right? We're really lucky to have that magnitude of leadership, regardless of if it was a man or a woman. She has an impact. And it's funny because everyone, like when she came to work for us, I think a lot of people, because she didn't have any experience. She just had leadership experience.
Right.
She just wasn't impressed or intimidated by anybody. Does that make sense? So like she just sits down and just like, even sometimes, and she's like, she's literally like 15 years younger than me. And there's times I'll talk and she'll first name me, or times she'll be like, shh, I got it. I'm like, who talks like that? You know what I'm saying? But she's that good at what she's doing that she'll just remove all that bullshit real quick. We need to have more of that power in this industry right now. And a lot of us know it. We just don't know where it's coming from. We're just trying to be like, what are you doing? Go get some more people. Where's your friends at? Get them in this industry. We need more of them. Why are you holding us back?
It's my fault.
I believe if you could speak into the microphone when you say that too.
It's 100% my
That's right.
fault. I don't know what's my fault, but I'll just throw myself.
No, we all have to do our part. This is it. Like you said, let's just keep doing these. Use these platforms. Hopefully this year you have no excuse to ghost me at DCAC.
I would never have ghosted you. I apologize so thoroughly.
I'm kidding.
And now I'm going to throw an event with you, and I've been working with Carly on it, and we're super excited.
Let me know what I could do to put anything I can behind it.
You got it.
Is that cool?
Yes.
Listen, thank you for finally coming and giving me the opportunity to meet you. Thank you for joining the Data Center Revolution.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.